This is it, guys. Jack Smith, Special Counsel Jack Smith, he's getting fired. And to a further extent, he may end up in jail for doing something illegal.
But otherwise, this is a very good day for the former president. This opinion is quite favorable on most points.
Going after former President Donald Trump. Why is this illegal? Well, Justice Clarence Thomas from the Supreme Court, he pretty much explained it. So here's a breakdown from Twitter user Jose Caruso. Yeah, I know it's a lot, but let me just go ahead and highlight one part here. Legal experts believe the ruling all but guarantees there will be no trial before the 2024 presidential election, throwing a major wrench into Special Counsel Jack Smith's case and clouding it with uncertainty. In a concurrence with no other justice joined, Justice Clarence Thomas went a step further by strongly suggesting that it's his view that Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed as special counsel. You heard that, guys? Jack Smith is unlawfully appointed as a special counsel. So in Justice Thomas's own words, there are serious questions whether the Attorney General has violated that structure by creating an office of the special counsel that has not been established by law. And according to Thomas's argument, a private citizen cannot criminally prosecute anyone, let alone a former president. So yeah, if I were Jack Smith, I'd be shaking in my legal boots right now. But what do you guys think? But really, the bottom line for me here, guys, is with the Supreme's ruling on presidential immunity going in favor of the former president, I think it's time to end the lawfare once and for all. That's right, guys. I'm looking at you, Jack Smith, along with Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, and maybe even President Joe Biden on this one. As they explained in an official editorial from the New York Post, the Supreme Court, by a 6-3 vote, just ruled that presidents have absolute immunity from prosecution for official acts, meaning actions that they take while they're in office. This means it could be while, maybe months, before we see any final decisions on whether or not some of former President Donald Trump's actions even qualify as official acts. So yeah, this ruling, it already throws a monkey wrench in some of the main points in prosecutor Jack Smith's case that claims Donald Trump conspired to overturn the 2020 presidential election. So basically, don't expect any clear answers before Election Day. And just after the votes are in this November, the Justice Department will probably end up dropping the charges because they're no longer going to be dealing with the former President Donald Trump anymore. By then, it could very well be officially President Donald Trump again. Plus, Jack Smith may be pretty busy by then facing his own trial as House Republican Chair Elise Stefanik is calling for an ethics investigation into Special Counsel Jack Smith, accusing him of meddling in the 2024 presidential election. You see, Stefanik sent a letter to the Justice Department's Office of Professional Responsibility demanding it conduct a review of Smith's handling of the election subversion case revolving around former President Donald Trump. Now, according to the House representative, it's pretty obvious to any reasonable observer that Jack Smith is trying to interfere with the 2024 election and stop the American people from electing Donald Trump. So, what do you think is going to happen first? Jack Smith gets his Trump or Jack Smith gets his just desserts? That's what we're going to be finding out in today's video, so definitely stick around, guys. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. Right after the Supreme Court handed down their presidential immunity ruling, former President Donald Trump, he issued an official statement saying that he's finally free from the political witch hunt and, more importantly, free to campaign for the American people. Check this out.
Here, and Jonathan Turley, get your take on the other side. Former President Trump said, "I have been harassed by the Democrat Party, Joe Biden, Obama, and their thugs, fascists, and communists for years. And now the courts have spoken. This is a big win for our Constitution and for democracy. Now I am free to campaign like anyone else. We are leading in every poll by a lot, and we will make America great again." So that's his take. Although I mentioned earlier, there's another date on the calendar. This is his July 11th sentencing in New York. And I agree, Jonathan, with him when he says, "I'm free to campaign like anyone else." Will that be true at the end of the day on July 11th as well?
Well, I would hope that the judge in New York would not impose a jail sentence because I don't think it's warranted under New York law. But this case is not over.
Now, honestly, guys, after all this legal and political BS, I'm just left wondering how much taxpayer money was wasted in this witch hunt against former President Donald Trump. I think it's insane, and the people responsible should be held accountable for what they've done. What do you guys think? Now, guys, by the way, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video if you're enjoying the content. Also, consider subscribing to the channel. And I really do appreciate you guys so much for always sharing these videos. You guys are absolutely amazing. But going back to Jose Caruso's tweet earlier, the continuation, it says how Justice Clarence Thomas's argument that Jack Smith's appointment was illegal basically gives Donald Trump legal ammunition in undoing his Mar-a-Lago prosecution, where U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon recently permitted pro-Trump amici curiae, Latin for friends of the court, to argue some of the very points Thomas made, meaning Jack Smith may be out of a job, possibly even jailed after this.
I want to know two other aspects of this opinion to complete this circle. The court deals with the so-called fake electors issue. And it says, look, that question in dealing with state officials is not something that we see as falling in within these core areas. And so the district court's going to have to look at those communications to determine to what extent there is this immunity, presumptive or not, that might apply. But then it also talks about President Trump's January 6th speech and all of his tweets. And the language there seems quite favorable towards President Trump and says that presidents are expected to speak forcibly on issues that are important to citizens. And it really puts a emphasis on the fact that this is something that presidents do. Many of us believe, certainly I do, that President Trump's speech was entirely protected under the First Amendment. But the court is also saying this is a function of what presidents do on matters that divide the public. So on that, you have another section that's going to help out the Trump team dramatically in front of the district court. The one area that might be a sticky point is going to be the electors issue. Yeah. And even Trump's counsel in front of the court acknowledged that that was going to be a tougher one.
So now let's take a look at what Justice Clarence Thomas said exactly, right? You see, when the Supreme Court handed down their ruling on absolute immunity for former President Donald Trump, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas also added that he questioned the legality of the Biden administration appointing Special Counsel Jack Smith to investigate and now prosecute former President Donald Trump. Thomas pointed out that there may be some constitutional issues with the way that Special Counsel's office was set up. He mentioned that there are some very serious questions about whether the Attorney General has violated the structure by creating an office of the Special Counsel that has not been established by law, or whether AG Merrick Garland stepped over the line by appointing a private citizen to such a role without the proper legal framework. Now, according to him, those questions must be answered before this prosecution can even proceed. The justice explained Merrick Garland purported to appoint a private citizen as special counsel to prosecute a former president on behalf of the United States. But if there's no law establishing the office that the special counsel occupies, then he can't proceed with the prosecution. And I like what Merrick Garland flat out points out in this part here. They cannot create offices at their pleasure. It definitely does get to the bottom of things, how they're doing all sorts of legal mumbo jumbo just to get Trump. Smith, who had been a leading prosecutor at the International Criminal Court, was brought on by Merrick Garland back in November 2022. Since then, he has started 2 criminal cases against Trump, one over the presumptive Republican nominee for president's alleged mishandling of classified White House documents, and another over Donald Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. And in turn, former President Trump filed a motion to dismiss the classified documents case on the grounds that Smith was illegally appointed. And so right now, the case is in the hands of U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida, who has not made a decision on Donald Trump's motion to dismiss based on these claims. Former Attorney General Ed Meese, who worked under Ronald Reagan, also argued before the Supreme Court's decision that they should reject Smith's request to not grant Donald Trump absolute immunity because he was unconstitutionally appointed to begin with. Meese even said that without the backing of federal authority, Smith may as well be the naked emperor or the emperor without clothes. Y'all know that story, right? In The Emperor's New Clothes, we meet an emperor who loves clothes so much that he gets duped by two swindlers. They convince him that they've made him an outfit from a fabric that's invisible to anyone unfit for the job or just plain stupid. The emperor can't actually see these clothes, but he's too embarrassed to admit it. So he ends up parading around town in what he thinks is this new suit. Eventually, a straightforward kid shouts out that the emperor is wearing nothing at all, and the crowd realizes the truth, that the emperor really isn't wearing anything at all. So yeah, this is basically Jack Smith for you, at least according to former AG General Ed Meese. As Ed Meese said, improperly appointed Jack Smith has no more authority to represent the United States in this court than Bryce Harper, Taylor Swift, or even Jeff Bezos. Justice Clarence Thomas went on to say that courts need to rule on whether Jack Smith is a principal or is he an inferior officer in order to determine whether he's constitutionally appointed. Because if Jack Smith is considered a principal officer, his appointment would be invalid without being nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Finally, Clarence Thomas wrapped up by saying that those questions must be answered before this prosecution can proceed. So what do you guys think? I mean, seriously, guys, this is gathering a lot of attention. I've been reading comments on videos and people all over the world commenting. They say that even though they're not American, they know that this is not only for Trump. This is for our country and for the whole world. So what do you say, guys? Is it time for America to wake up and vote for the man who gave up his wealth for a country instead of the man who's giving up our country for his wealth and the administration? Drop me a quick comment down below if you agree. Now, with the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity, it's pretty clear that we need to end lawfare. Monday's decision means Special Counsel Jack Smith's efforts to prosecute Trump will likely drag on for years. The 6-3 ruling confirms that presidents have absolute immunity from prosecution for official acts, meaning it would take months to determine if some of Donald Trump's actions were not official, undermining key points of Jack Smith's case alleging Trump conspired to overturn the 2020 election. So, in short, this won't be resolved before Election Day, leaving voters to decide in November how this will ultimately play out, whether the Justice Department is going to pursue their vendetta against former President Trump or just drop the charges when Trump becomes president. But seriously, guys, I think the best move now is for Smith to just drop the case and for prosecutors and their Democratic supporters to just stop using lawfare against political opponents. Because clearly, continuing this prosecution only deepens division and it weakens the nation's already fragile political institutions. Ultimately, the American public suffers as the trust in the rule of law just plain old erodes due to politically motivated prosecutions. America faces real issues like border control, inflation, foreign threats. We don't need further political division from a distrusted judicial system. For the nation's sake, the court's ruling should inspire an end to using lawfare as a political tool. That's probably why House Republican Conference Chair Elise Stefanik is calling for an ethics investigation into Special Counsel Jack Smith, accusing him of meddling in the 2024 presidential election. According to her letter to the Justice Department's Office of Professional Responsibility, it's obvious to any reasonable observer that Jack Smith is trying to interfere with the 2024 election and to stop the American people from electing Donald Trump. Now, honestly, a lot of people question whether Jack Smith and all these other prosecutors would bring up all these ridiculous cases against former President Trump if he were not running this November. Now, before you go, don't forget to check out our other video where we explore another intriguing political development, guys. This time it's about Joe Biden pushing Joe Biden to continue his campaign despite concerns over his mental state. It's a candid look at the internal dynamics of a campaign that's as personal as it is political. So make sure to give it a watch for some eye-opening insights. And hey, thank you guys so much for sticking with me today. If you enjoyed the breakdown and you really want to stay on top of all the latest developments, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.